Thank you, Fred, for organizing this event, and thank you to all of you from the press, the media who are here. I have to apologize in advance because I'm on one of your panels, which starts at 9:15, and so I need to be up there by 9 o'clock, and so I'm probably not going to be in a position to take questions at the end. But having said that, I'll be here all day today and all day tomorrow at Trade Talk. So any of you, if you don't get your questions answered from this group of panelists today, you'll have a chance to put a mic in front of me anytime over the next couple of days. National Farmers Union strongly supports the rule that we're here to talk about. We have submitted our comments on the rule. We would encourage everyone who supports these rules to submit their comments as well. Get your comments on the record because that's the way the system works. USDA proposes rules to implement laws that are passed by the Congress. They receive comments from people all over the country. They consider those comments. They more than likely make changes to the proposed rules after having considered those comments and issue a final rule. We support this rule because we really view it as a farmer-rancher Bill of Rights. It's very fundamental to fairness in the marketplace that when you have folks in a marketplace that have unequal market power, that you have rules that describe how business ought to be conducted so that you don't have those folks with enormous market power being able to unfairly exercise it to the detriment of other folks in the market. And that is fundamentally what is at stake with these rules. So we are strong supporters of them. We think it will bring fairness to the marketplace. I'm not going to go into the rules. I know that the panelists are going to provide a lot of detail about the rules. I thought it might make some sense to just sort of lay a bit of background here as to why they are so important. And it sort of begins with a look at what's happened in the marketplace in recent history. In 1980, we had 1.3 million cattle operations in this country. Today, 950,000 remain. In swine, the reduction has been much more dramatic. In that same time period, we went from 666,000 hog farms, today 67,000. A 90% decrease. In addition, farmers and ranchers are receiving an ever smaller share of the retail dollar spent on meat. Every month, National Farmers Union, on our website, we update the latest market share of a basket of food items to describe for the public how much the farmer gets out of whatever it is that you're buying at the grocery store. And I encourage you to go to our website and find those, look at what the farmer's share of the retail dollar is. In beef, we used to have 30 years ago 62 cents of the retail dollar. Today, it's 42 cents. And I'll describe a little bit of what's happened to that difference in just a second. In the same time frame, hog producers saw their share of the marketplace of the food dollar fall in half, from 50% of the retail dollar to 24% today. We have a system in the meat markets that is frankly broken. And you're going to hear a lot about what is broken about it. But let me just give, in economic terms, some of the indications as to why I make that claim. If you look at return on equity and you break the market into its three major components, food retailing, they average 21% return on equity. Meat packers average 17% return on equity. The cattle industry, a negative 0.5%. USDA data, in fact, has shown that the return on equity is just 2% for all cattle farms averaged over the last 13 years. Now, if you had a competitive marketplace, economic theory would tell you that the return on equity ought to be approximately similar across those different sectors of the marketplace. So we've got a problem here. We clearly have a problem, and the rules in part are a way of addressing part of that problem. I want to just talk about a couple of the provisions of the rule that we think are really quite important. And I know that recently there was a study that AMI had commissioned that was making really kind of wild claims about job losses and economic impact if the rule goes into effect. And really much of what undergirded that study was an assumption that market prices were going to go up for the consumer, and as a result, purchases would go down. And fundamental to that assumption was their assertion that the change in the definition in terms of damage to the marketplace was going to be so profound that it was going to shake the industry. Well, frankly, we think that is a gross over-exaggeration of what would happen. For many, many years under the Packer and Stockyards Act, if a producer was damaged, you had a right to seek redress. And it was only in 2005 that ultimately a decision was finalized, a judicial decision was finalized that said something different. In fact, what it said is if you as a producer are harmed, the packer, in this case, who may have harmed you, you had to prove that not only was that harm intentional on the part of the packer, but that in fact, that harm was so serious, so significant, that it impacted the entire marketplace. That was never the intent of the Packer and Stockyard Act, and that was not the interpretation up until that recent decision made some 5 years ago. These rules return the presumption on that case to what it used to be for many, many, many years. And so the allegation that adopting these rules is somehow going to create all this enormous uncertainty and lead to an enormous increase in lawsuits being filed, we think is just sort of laughable on its face. That wasn't the case in all those years up until 2005. So why would one expect that suddenly, because this rule implements an intent that was there from the beginning and was the practice for many, many years, suddenly you're going to end up with a very, very different conclusion. So that is certainly one argument. The second argument is that USDA itself asserts that that would not be true. Fundamentally, fairness in the marketplace is what is at stake. Producers should not be able to be discriminated against. The last point I want to make on this is that really there's no other place that I can think of in the marketplace where if I as a producer am asked to sign a contract, I am prohibited from taking that contract to my lawyer or to share it with anyone else before I sign it. That is an example of onerous market power that's being exercised in sectors of the meat industry in the marketplace today that simply needs to go away. It's fundamentally unfair. We don't do that anywhere else in the marketplace, and it shouldn't be allowed to happen to continue in this marketplace either. And so those are a couple of the reasons that we in Farmers Union really strongly support this rule. We think it's about fairness. I would, again, in conclusion, remind everyone, encourage folks, get your comments in. The comment period ends in a couple of weeks. And so if you haven't commented yet on the rules, you ought to be doing so. And with that, Fred, I'm going to turn it back to you and the rest of the panelists.
Thank you.